Happy to show you a practical example. So let me try to show you, or let me show you how you can create your very own KPI card.
How to create the visual with the HTML and CSS.
I think we left off on this page where we saw like lots of different KPI cards, but I wanted to show how to actually do this. So there's different ways. So of course, if you know HTML, you could just type it in, but for most people, that's not really an option. So this is why we created this online tool, which you can find on BI-Samurai/HTML editor. And in there, we basically have a rich text editor where we can design, well, anything. So let's try to insert a table, because basically a KPI card is a table. Let me try to create a KPI card. I don't know. Let's create something like this. So I just have a table with 2 columns, 3 rows, and this is automatically now already translated into HTML. And later on, I can use this code in the visual. Let's add some elements in here. Maybe here I want to have, let's say, I don't know, gross margin, basically my KPI. And then in here, maybe I want to have the variance to budget. So I could add a, where is it, special character, maybe an arrow pointing up if I have a positive variance. And later on, we can make all these elements dynamic. But let's just do this rather quickly. Let's also add one arrow pointing down. And we can also group cells. So we could say cells merge. We could also make this a bit bigger. The good thing is anything you might want to change or make dynamic later on, you actually want to change in here already. Because right now in this code, it doesn't say anything about font size because we haven't changed any font size. But let's just see where to look at. We look at this part here. What happens once I change the font size? Let's make it bigger. You can see that now we have this font size property. So anything we want to change later on, we actually change in here because then it will be easier to change it. We don't need to type in any HTML. Same thing here. We will say, I don't know, 1.2 versus budget. 1.5 versus previous year, and then 0.8 versus forecast, for example. Same thing here. If we think we want to change something, for example, what we want to change is the color, because we want to make it green when it's positive and red when it's negative. So we should definitely change the font in here, because only now we actually get, the color. So because only now we actually get a color. Same here. And this we can also make red. Okay, let's just say we're happy with this for now. What else could we? No, I think we're good. Let's see, we have 2 columns, one. Yeah, let's just see. So we give it a name. We call it the measure, we call it KPI card. And then I just click on the copy code button. I get this little confirmation that the code was copied. And I now go back to Power BI and let me just add a new page and create a new measure and then just paste in the code from the tool from before. This is what I can then actually add into the visual. And it should display exactly the card that I've just created. So I add the HTML text styler and I get the KPI card measure in here. And I already have my KPI card measure.
Wow.
And now, of course, I can make it dynamic. So, yeah. So we could actually link it to the data model. Right now, nothing in here is dynamic. Let's look at the data quickly because I don't use this report every day, so I'm not sure. I think we have something for countries. Let me look at the country table. No, that doesn't make sense. I mean, the data table probably. So here we have some results per country. So what we could do is I could probably add a slicer. So somebody could select the country. And then I already saw some measures. So for example, actuals versus budget. We could see that for Canada, for example, we have minus 315 actuals versus budget. So we could put this number in here. Let's turn off the tooltip. In the next version, the tooltip setting will be better, but this is something that we'll actually try to publish very soon. Let's try to make this here, take this number from here. Okay, so how do we do this? I would first create a variable. I would create a variable which is var value AC versus budget maybe. And we can use the already existing measure, actual versus budget. So now we need to find where we actually have this 1.2. Let me move it down a bit so we can see the card and the measure at the same time. So we need to find this 1.2, which is here, and replace it with our variable. So I add two double quotes because I'm changing from hard-coded text or HTML to DAX. And then I also add 2 and% in between. And then I can just add my variable, confirm with enter. And then hopefully in here, we already see the 315. Also, because this is negative, I probably want to have the arrow pointing down. Right? So I could say, and this is why I already put in 2 arrows, because now also the arrows were translated into HTML. So this is the up arrow, this is the up arrow, and this is the down arrow. And I can then reuse those elements. So whenever I add something that I don't know the code for, it's easier if I just add it. Or a different way is you just use the emoji keyboard. So with Windows key and full stop, you actually get to the emoji keyboard, and you could also say, you know, I don't know, get a symbol from here. But anyway, I just chose to go a different way today. So var arrow up is this. So I can reuse it again. Var arrow down is this. And then we can say the symbol var symbol actual versus budget is if my variable from above is above 0 or 0, then I want to show 0, then I want to show the var arrow up. If not, so if it's below budget, I want to show the arrow down. So let's see. So in here, replace this. Let's see if that works. And that should be the var symbol AC versus budget. So it's now pointing down. But it's a negative value. So let's see if I find a country which actually has a positive value. France is positive. So we have the arrow pointing up. But now I can do the same thing with the color. Right? I want the whole thing to be red when it's negative. So I could say var color AC versus budget is more or less the same, right? So if it's above, we could say there's different ways I can add colors. I can just type it in, or also I could use, where is it? An RGB code like this, or I could also use a hex code. Sorry, this is red. So this would be red. And then we just need to replace this part here. So the RGB we want to get rid of, but we want to have it dynamically coming from the color up there. R color AC versus budget. Now it should stay green, probably a different green than we had before. And if I change the country again, let me also get the slicer down here. So Canada was negative, wasn't it? So Canada is negative red. France is positive green. I'm not going to do it for the other measures here. It's exactly the same thing, right? But I just wanted to show that basically all these elements, we can easily make it dynamic using this method. But maybe one idea I have, because I want to show you what we can actually use this category placeholder for. So maybe this is not only the gross margin, but it's the gross margin of a selected country. So let's create another variable for the country, which is selected value, the country from the country table. And we could say, where is it? For the gross margin, it's actually the gross margin coming from the country. And now this should probably say gross margin France. And now you also see that it was a good idea to add the font size, because now I can easily make it smaller. Because now I can just say this should actually only be, let's try 16. That's much nicer. And then what we can do, that works for, well, any element we create, we can actually say, what if we want to show a KPI card for all countries at the same time? What we can do is we can take the country from the country table and add it to the category placeholder. And now if I select the second country, I actually get the other countries in as well. And then I can format this a little bit, because maybe I want to see actually, this grid line I don't want. And also I want to have a little gap in between. I can increase the padding between the rows and turn off the grid. And now I have 4 KPI cards. Well, basically it's still one visual, but displaying dynamically the number of countries which I have selected. So yeah, this is one way how to create a KPI card from scratch. And I didn't really type in any HTML code. I copied a few things. I typed in some DAX. I needed to know where to add the elements. But honestly, I think when we look at this, and if you try to read the code that's already in there, a lot of the things we can understand.
But what happens if you select just 2 countries?
So if I select just 2 countries, then I only see 2 countries.
How did you do the duplication? I think if you could go over that.
I added. So let's just do it a little bit different. Let's just add the table visual. I add a table visual. Then I add the countries from the countries table. Let me clear this slicer. So I have all the 5 countries. And now I get this AC BU measure in again. So we again have Canada minus 315, France plus 1363. The same numbers over here, right? We have Canada minus 315, France 1363. And the way I duplicated it is because I also added the country into the category placeholder. So the visual just renders the same measure, but for every selected country. Without this, just displays, well, nothing or one. It really depends on the measure. But this is the magic here. I put this in here, and this is the outcome. One interesting thing maybe, because normally you can see that now my countries are sorted alphabetically. Canada, C, F, G, S, S. But maybe I don't want this to be sorted alphabetically, but maybe I want to have the country with the most revenue or biggest variance related to budget or whatever on top. So we also have a sorting placeholder. So you can see here, I've actually sorted by actual versus budget. And I could use the same measure in the HTML text styler and say, now please sort by this AC versus budget. And now I should, well, sort the other way around, right? Sort ascending. And now it's the same. So we have the minus 913 on top, and we have the 5937 on the bottom. Again, maybe it's a bit confusing that we have all these numbers which are hard-coded. But of course, you saw that it didn't take too much time to do this for the budget. We could easily do this for the previous year and versus the forecast, or you could even add more, or you could add, I don't know, all kinds of elements. We could also say, you know, we don't actually want to have an up arrow, but as I said, we want to have, this is for positive result. And if I have a negative result is, I don't know. I'm not saying this is good practice, right? I don't think in a business report you should add these smiling faces, but I think it could add some fun maybe, you know? You can add any element that you want. There's an element too many in here somewhere which I need to delete. It's here. It's this one here. The semicolon here needs to go away. So yeah, again, just doing some showcases and showing the possibilities. I think there's much more I would probably do in this card. I would also say probably the first column should take 60%, and the second one can be a bit narrower. So 60-40, maybe 65-35. You can just play around with that until you have your KPI card. And I think this is a good starting point, that website here, or also really for anything, the sample report is always a good starting point, because if you see, okay, you know, I like this one, or I like this one, or I like that one, just go there and copy the code. You know, copy the code, paste it into your report. And then of course you need to adjust some of the elements, but it's a very good and a very easy starting point. And I think very soon we'll need to add a second KPI card page because there's no more space on this one. Yeah. And the HTML CSS viewer even has some more, because in there we can even use some CSS effects. So here we have way more possibilities. Here we can also do, like, you know, these little flip cards. So when I hover over the card, it flips. So we could have also, again, many different use cases, maybe not for a business report, maybe yes, I don't know. But yeah, of course, here we just have a bit more possibilities. Also here we have the possibility, you can see that here we have a flag, and the flag is actually loaded from the web. So this flag is always loaded from the internet. When I change the country, I should get the flag of France. This is not possible with the HTML text styler, as I mentioned, because it's Microsoft certified. It cannot access the internet. But here we can easily, I think, let's see if it, here. We have a measure for the country flag. And there is this website, countries-of-the-world.com/flags normal. And we just replace a part of the URL with the selected country. And then the country or the flag from the selected country is loaded from the internet. And you can also see here we have a different element where we say the size. So we could make this flag bigger. Let's put it to 80, so the flag will now be bigger. Right? And you just play around with all the different settings and elements until you have the perfect KPI card or the perfect table or, well, whatever you want to add to the report. It's not really any limitations, but our own imagination, maybe. Yeah. So I think this was what I wanted to show about KPI cards. Where were we before we went to the KPI cards? I think we probably went here. So the visual also supports tooltips, which I think is an interesting use case, maybe to add comments. So when the user hovers over, this is a native visual down here. Maybe we want to add comments. So when I hover, I actually get an explanation of why this number is -5 below budget. So somebody, like a business user, a controller, somebody from finance, or a key account manager could really add comments into a Power App, into a SharePoint list, into an Excel sheet, I don't know. This could be added to the data set, and then we could dynamically display comments in a tooltip. Yeah. Well, scrolling text or scrolling images or scrolling anything, I think you probably saw it on the pages. I think it's included on all the pages here. We have always a text going from right to left or left to right. And this can also be done quite easily. Of course, everything is dynamic again. We could change the direction, we could change the speed. And again, if we look at the code, it's not rocket science. It looks like a lot. It always takes quite many variables. But this is just, I mean, all this is just DAX, right? We just define some stuff. This is the value. This is a hard-coded value. We define, again, a format of a specific value. This is what you've seen before, where we define a color, but also this code we can easily copy from somewhere, like we did before. We just change the color in here, and as soon as we change the color, we actually get the color element. So if you ever don't know how to put in a color, we just do it in here. If I add something in here, let me just test, or let's say red and blue. If I make this red, we can see this is exactly it. This is span style for red, and this here will be span style for blue. And if I didn't know that, I could just copy this and put it in here, because you can see it's the same thing, span style color red. There's really no need to know too much of HTML to make all these little things work properly. All right. Maybe another interesting use case is something like this, where we have, I mean, you know, Power BI reports, they contain several pages and they might have lots of different and very cool and sophisticated features and drill throughs and cross filtering and tooltips and all that, but maybe not everybody knows how to use a report. So maybe somewhere you want to have some end user help where the users can go and see how to actually work with the report. And this could sometimes be quite a lot of text with images and GIFs and links and embedded videos, maybe even, I don't know. And normally when you do that, you add every element individually. You add a header in bold, then you add an image, and then you add a regular text. And then again, down here, you have an email button and something else. So, and that might make your report maybe slower. I mean, every single additional element is bad in general. But also it makes it harder to maintain maybe. And in here, we can just have one. This is all one measure. But all of this is just one measure where we, again, I didn't need to write this. This can really, again, be done in here. So again, I could type something. I could say, this is my title, and my title is probably a bit bigger. And then I could try to explain something. And then I can also add an image in here. So all of this could be done in here. And then again, I get the code, which I just paste into the visual. And I have it ready, and I can make adjustments. I can also make, again, individual pieces of it dynamic using DAX and connect it to the data set. All of this quite easily possible. Should we do one more real example of how to build something?
Yeah.
So I'll let you choose. You want to
From
do
the lot?
Not from everything, because a lot of some of these things, like that, for example, right? That would take too much time. And I'm also not the person that builds this, because let me just mention this. Everything you see here was built in Adobe Illustrator. So for things like that, you really need a designer that knows Adobe Illustrator, and then that knows, let me try to pick a simple one. Let me pick the stars, because it's basically just 5 stars and a number. So maybe I can try to explain, because it's a lot more. Well, it's not more code, but it's very different code. So basically, let's forget about the part on top for now, and let's just go down here, and you can see that we have something here which is called a path. This is the end of the path. Then we have another one here, and then again the end. And let's see how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then another 5. Because we have 5 stars. But actually what we have is 10 stars. Because also we only have the borders, and then we also have the filled stars. But let's just say we have the 5 stars. Technically, we have 10. And this is a definition of one of the stars. So SVG elements really know, or the visual knows from this SVG definition, that it needs to draw a star. And then we can overlap the star with some filling colors. This is what we do up here. So we have a percentage, which is again coming from a variable. And we also define the color, which is also coming from a variable. And if we see where this goes down here, it goes into a second place. Oh, sorry. we have defined the percentage, and the percentage is going into, I will need to find it down here. It's probably somewhere, I'm not sure where it is. But somewhere in here, we actually say, you know, how much of the stars are actually filled with color. And this is a completely different skill set. So to create things like that, a designer could easily create this, but the tricky part is to connect it to a data set. And there's not many designers that know Power BI. And there's not many Power BI people that know Adobe Illustrator. So I was lucky enough, or we were lucky enough to find a person that is a great designer and was also interested in data. So he's actually designing all these elements for us. And whenever we have a new idea or a client has an idea, we're always happy to help and to actually just, you know, create those elements for clients. And in most cases, if it's something simple like that, we even do this for free, because it's nice to add new stuff to the sample reports. So anyway, I couldn't design these things, or it would take me a very, very long time. But what I can try to do, I can try to do something like this in Excel, where we have a progress bar, and depending on how much I select, you know, the bar moves from left to right. And of course, also the color we could change dynamically. So this is what I could try to do. Let's see. I could also do it in, just saying, I could also do it in here. But because I showed you this technique before, I want to show a different technique now. We have a brand new Excel file. And if we just think of this progress bar, let's just try to select, or let's just select 10 cells, because I don't want to have, here we go from 0 to 100. I'm going to make one which goes from in steps of tens. Otherwise, it will take too much time. So this will be my cell 1, 2, 3, 4. Because later on, I want to be able to identify every cell. Let me make everything a bit bigger. And then we also want to make sure they should probably be squares, more or less. And we can center align the text. And that will be my progress bar. So it will move from left to right, depending on what I've selected. And what I explained before is anything I want to later on make dynamic, I need to define in the tool I use. So what I want to make dynamic is the color. So I need to give colors to all these elements. And one important thing is, because if we go back to the report, every element can have a different color. So for example, these ones here are green. These ones here are gray. I need to give a different color to every element already in Excel. And it doesn't matter which color it is. It doesn't matter at all. We just give different colors. I already messed up. That was the same. Anything works. It doesn't matter at all. You will see in a second. Maybe a black. Okay. So this is my. This is it. I'm happy with it. We could do much more, but I'm happy with it. So what I need to do now is I need to select the cells which are part of my progress bar. Then I need to save this Excel file. But here I need to be careful. I cannot save it. Let me just navigate to the place where I want to have it. I don't want to save it as an Excel file, but I actually want to save it as an
HTML.
Exactly. I want to save it. Sorry, wrong. This one here. I want to save this as an HTML file. And Excel can do that. Excel can translate this into HTML. And once I do,
So that means Excel now behaves like the tool that you built.
Excel now behaves like this.
All right.
And sometimes, you know, for the progress bar, I would use this. But sometimes, yeah, I want to create very complex tables with lots of stuff, and then it's easier to do it in Excel. And I need to also select this option. So I only save the selected cells. This is why I selected them before. So let me save this, publish. Now, when I navigate to this location, you can see that I now have a new HTML document. And when I open it, of course, it opens in my browser because it's an HTML document. This is my progress bar. And in every browser, you can right-click, select View Page Source. And again, what we have is HTML code. So I can just take this code, go back here. Let me also create a new page and a new measure. And let's call it progress. And I paste this in. And now here I need to be careful because we used Excel and Excel doesn't know what we want to do. We need to get rid of all these double quotes. So all double quotes need to be replaced to single quotes. The easiest way to
replace all these automatically?
Again, sorry?
Is there a way to replace all the double quotes automatically?
Well, the way I'm going to show you is very easy because you just select one and then we press Control Shift and L. And Control Shift L just highlights every element which is the same. And then I just press a single quote. And that's it. Now I only have single quotes. This is actually very useful if you work with, well, in the DAX formula editor in general. This is quite useful if you work with variables and you want to rename a variable. If you, I don't know, it happens a lot that you search for the same element and then you always need to go to tabular editor to do that. But it also works in the regular DAX editor with Control Shift L. And we just need to double quote in the beginning and in the end. Otherwise, well, the measure progress already exists, so we call it progress new. And let's see what happens when I add this measure to the visual. And this time, because again, Excel does things a little bit differently. Excel is saving, well, let's look at this. Excel added CSS style sets. So all these little things here are CSS styles. And because of certain limitations, which we'll try to overcome, of course, we have to use the HTML and CSS viewer for cases like that. So HTML, CSS viewer, my measure was called progress new. Very good. So this is my progress bar. And then again, of course, I can make this dynamic. I can also, now I decide, oh, this is a bit too small. I can actually also use the scaling within the visual to make everything a bit bigger. So I don't need to go back. To make things smaller or bigger, I can also use the scaling. And in the next version, this should also work with conditional formatting. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, from now on, the only thing we need is, well, let's maybe add a, hang on, I already have a slicer. Where is the slicer? It's on here. Let's get the same slicer in here. Because basically, normally you would link this to the data model. I just have this what if parameter, which is called, just I need to see what the measure is called, value parameter. Okay. So here, I need to get the value. So the var value is the value parameter. All right. But how do I know which element should be, well, whatever color? Let's add a variable for color. Hard-coded for now. You can still make it dynamic later on, but for now, let's do like this. So how do I know which part of this massive code to change to make it dynamic? So let me try to explain. Everything on top is again CSS, which means all of this stuff has to do with style and formatting, which we can see font weight, font size, text decoration. Also, a lot of it we don't really need. Excel adds way too much. We don't really need it, but also we can just leave it there. Also, we can see here we have background. So probably we need to make this dynamic. But which one? Because there's a background here, there's a background here, there's a background here. So I don't know. And then in the middle of the code, well, in the lower part of the code, all of a sudden it changes. So we're at the end of the style. And now we actually define the content. So it starts with the body. Again, a lot of this we could delete. And then down here, we start with the table. Very good, right? And then if we look at this is our table. So we have table row. We only have one row. Then we have the first column. In the first column, we have the number 1. In the second column, we have the number 2, and so on and so on. So we can also see that the first column has a class which is starting with X163. You see, they all have different numbers because in Excel, I use different colors for every cell. That's exactly why I did it. Otherwise, it would only have added one class, and it would be impossible to change only one of the cells. So we need to find a class which is called 163 up here. 163 here. So probably in here, I could get rid of this and get my color from above. So now the first column should be green. Let's just check if we got the right one. This is now green. And now I can make this dynamic. Now I can say, if this value that I've selected is 10%. Above 10 or whatever. I mean, the rest is what if, right? We can do what if and say, if this happens, make it green. If not, make it red or leave it white or I don't know. And we could also do the same with the values. So we could say, only put the value where we have the actual number. So let's try to do this. Let's try to do the number thing. So we could say the 1 here. Let me think. Let's do something. No, actually, that makes sense. Let's just do it right in here. There's always different ways. So let's just say this is not hard-coded 1, but it should be DAX. So we could say if the var value is greater than, no, hang on, is less than 10, then type in 10. Otherwise, leave it blank. All of this is a bit quick and dirty, but let's see. So it's less than 10, so we have the number 10. Let's do 19, and now it's blank. So you get the idea, right?
Yeah.
You get the idea, and we could add much more. We could say for the one which is selected, we could add a different border color, or we could make the font bigger. I don't know. I mean, yeah, whatever you want to create, you can create. And if you're not a designer, you can create things in Excel, or also we can actually also create things in
Adobe.
Adobe, of course, but there you need to be. I don't work with Adobe. I don't know how to work with Adobe. But for smiley faces, for example, or dynamic images, simple stuff with images, you could also work with PowerPoint.
Wow.
Because also PowerPoint
allows you to save as HTML.
Allows you to I don't save it as HTML there, because what I can do, and I could add, where is it, icons. I'm also not a PowerPoint person, but let's just say I want, I don't know, a face. So I want this face, and I want, if the numbers are bad, I want, I don't know, this face. Could be anything. It could be, doesn't matter. And then again, we could say that different colors. And now we can save this not as not HTML, but we actually save it as SVG. So remember when I said that all these elements are SVGs, like the star with the bit, all these numbers that then turn into a star. We can do the same thing for this. So let me just call this face and also save it in here, or face one. We're also only going to do one because it's always the same process. If you've done this a couple of times, you realize that this is actually very easy. Face one, and it opens in a browser. New page source, select everything, copy everything, go back here, add a new measure, call it face one maybe, doesn't matter. Paste it in. We need to replace double quotes again. So I just highlight one. Anything I highlight, so if I highlight 38 and press Ctrl-Shift-L, it highlights all the 38s, right? This works with everything, of course. So I highlight one, Ctrl-Shift-L, put in the single quote, double beginning and in the end. And let's see what we see when we add this to the report, HTML, CSS, phase one. We get our phase one. And if we look at the code again, some of the things might be familiar. This here, let's copy it, let's Google it, is hex code, right? So this is hex code, which means we can replace this with a different hex code or just with a different hard-coded color. So again, I could say, or I mean hard-coded, of course, it could again come from what if. So, if the budget is, the actions is above budget, it's a green face or it's whatever. So we could again say color is green, or also it's just selected color. And then we replace this with the variable var color. And then let's just add the colors here. So let's add the colors as a slicer. Maybe make it single select. Doesn't really make sense to mix them. And now it's blue, green, gray, red. And, you know, I could add this to, yeah, I don't know. Anything you like, you can make dynamic. Sometimes it's hard to explain because there's too many possibilities. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's what is running in my head, that maybe perhaps I'm going to design. So in Photoshop or Adobe, what do you save it as? An SVG?
I don't even have Adobe installed. So what I receive in the end from the designer is, well, I received the DAX code, but yeah, but basically it's an SVG. Yes, yeah, absolutely. So
All right.
all of these elements, yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of these elements here are SVGs, and the more complex they get, this one is probably I don't know which one is the most complex. Oh, hang on. This one is quite a complex one, because this is a map of Switzerland. Well, this one is even more complex because it also has this pattern. So here we have a massive, this measure, this is the size of this measure, right? There's so many elements, but this is really this was not, by the way, I need to mention this, right? This was not our designer doing that. That's, her name is Tali, and she's actually one person, and again, there's not many, that works again with Adobe Illustrator and is also a Power BI Pro. So she used this card or this map in the Power BI Switzerland Championship. And she allowed me to steal her code and add it to our sample reports. Ours is different, right? But again, everything is dynamic. So you see how the colors change depending on what month I select. But it's all SVG. In the end, this is all, every path ID. So we have the canton of Bern. It has an ID of 26 BE. This is the definition all the way until here when the next one starts. So you can also see like the Bern, well, quite big. Zurich will be coming up next, right? So Zurich will have more code, probably. So this is CH is Zurich, so Zurich has more code. The smaller ones, Uri, for example, is small, have less code, so less complex. The more complex you shape, the more SVG code you will get. But nobody typed this code, of course, right? Adobe will save as SVG. I mean, even for our smiley face from before, it's not a lot of code, but you wouldn't want to try to create this by just typing in.
The smiley face, for instance, could we have the actual face change depending on?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I could save this, save as face 2. Do the same thing, right? We don't need this anymore. I save it. Just get the file. Phase 2. Right click, page source, Control A to select all, Control C, copy, new measure. Phase 2 is this. Replace the double quotes, Control Shift L. So this is the second smiley. So we could say, we could create a measure which is a dynamic measure, dynamic face. So again, we could say, let's just make it easy. Let's just say if this parameter, value parameter is above 50, then return phase 1. Otherwise, we turn phase 2. one of the ways of doing it. And now this measure here will return this, but when I change this up, so, and again, yeah, you could have 100 different faces and including different colors at the same time. I think there's a lot of ways or ideas that we haven't even come up with because there's just too much that you can do. And I think you can also do very, very industry specific things. One of the examples we can see here, right? A plane, I don't know, you could really visualize a plane or anything. And we can even place tooltips within the visual. So every dot here, we can give a dynamic tooltip. And this has nothing to do with the tooltip functionality from Power BI. This is all within the visual itself.
Wow.
So a couple of these things are real life examples. A couple of these things are just ideas that we want to share and inspire people. This can also be moving elements, which can be quite nice. Right? We have moving elements, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you because we could spend half an hour on every single page, I guess.
I've really learned a lot. I think that it's an eye-opener for myself and the viewers as well, that there's endless possibilities. And I hope to probably try one or two things with my designer and see how best we can come up with very interesting stuff, especially in industry-specific cases. Once it's SVG, this is working something like the hypnotic panel, but quite cooler because now you can decide on what to do.
Yes. The visual just does what you tell it to do. If your code works, the visual should display what you want to do. But yes, I mean, there's a lot that can be done. I think really, especially the industry specific, but also the very small stuff can be quite interesting to just really have, again, all this is just one visual, and sometimes just add like little text boxes, like little information that is dynamically formatted and is taking dynamic DAX elements. You can do, in the beginning, you couldn't even do that. Power BI wouldn't allow you to have a dynamically formatted and dynamic text. So you could either have a text box and have all the formatting you want, or you could have dynamic content, but then you would need to display it in, I don't know, in a card visual, for example. With the smart narrative, you can do sort of these things, but maybe something, it depends on what you want to do, sometimes a bit more complex, and also I think in many cases with limitations.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, this is fantastic. You have managed to demystify HTML and CSS. And I believe most people watching this would wonder how a former finance guru went into this. But this is fantastic. It's inspirational. And hopefully I'll start building some reports and share it with you.
Yes, please. And again, what I said, if you have an idea, but you don't know how to approach it. No, sorry, that's the wrong. What's the website we have for? Yeah. So kteam.ch/SVG order. This is where, if you have an idea, you want to create, instead of a plane, you want a train, or you want to call anything, you upload it here. This goes to the designer, and then, as I mentioned, in most cases, you even get this for free. If it's super complex, if it's a whole warehouse, probably not, but we're always happy to have new cases. So remember this here. because then you just go here and fill out this form, explain what you would like to have, upload like a screenshot or two, and then, well, we'll see what comes out. Because I understand it's tricky to get started, so we're happy to offer this service for free for our users.
Wow. It's been very great chatting with you, Pascal. I believe my viewers have learned a lot, a dozen. I mean, the endless possibility. I mean, we thought Charticulator was cool, but HTML, CSS has been way cooler. And this is...
It's different, right? It's different. It's
way different. Yeah. And I mean, the possibilities are endless. I'm really thinking about so many things. But like I said, Pascal has shown us where to send any design or idea to. Kindly send them to him. And I think maybe one of these days I'll be going on a challenge so that people can actually design their own HTML, CSS, and let's see what people can come up with. At the end, we can always yeah. So thank you very much, Pascal, for honoring this invitation. And viewers, follow Pascal Keifer, the BI Samurai. He's a great inspiration to the community and mainly would make you laugh more.
I'll try. Thank you very much.
So catch you same time next week, and hopefully we'll catch Pascal in a different day after the challenge, so that he can probably be a judge to see which of the challenges we can actually portray to the world. Thank you very much. All right. So
thank you.
Subscribe to my channel. I'm Ebenezer Safwedu, a BI specialist and a strategy consultant. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.